Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today I've got a lightning rampage werebear for you, and this thing is absolutely nuts. I love it. It's probably the funnest werebear build I've ever played. In it, you transform into a werebear, you then rampage around, and while rampaging, you have lightning strikes hitting everything. You're going to get 5 lightning strikes per second while rampaging from the skill tree alone, and then every time you stop rampaging, it will use War, which will proc using Warcry's tree, and you will get stacks of Maelstrom, and you'll have 8 to 12 stacks of Maelstrom, which can give you haste so that you'll move even faster, and then it itself will also strike enemies with lightning every second, up to 3 additional targets. So you will have 6 strikes of lightning going off every second while rampaging, which is absolutely nuts. We're going to build into crit chance, which is really easy to do, so you can get to 100% crit with the lightning strikes pretty easily in this build, and you get rage back on crit and on hit and on kill, which is really nice and going to allow you to sustain your rage the entire time. Now, with all of that in mind, it's hands down the funnest build I played, but it does lack for single target a little bit. You can run through, I'm doing 400 corruption really easy, you can just run through maps with it. For single target though, it's going to go a bit slower. It's a little wonky trying to rampage in a circle around the target because rampage is basically a directional straight shot, but there's no cooldown on rampage, so you can constantly stop, churn yourself, and keep going and have it point the mouser. Also, stopping every 3 to 4 seconds with it allows you to proc that Warcry to get all those Maelstrom stacks, so it all works out in the end. Overall, you're going to be very tanky. You're going to have a ton of extra spell damage thanks to, in the werebear tree, being able to stack spell damage with just strength. So for every point of strength you have added spell damage, which is really nice. It's what makes the lightning hit so hard. On top of that, you will have a crow, and every time the crow hits an enemy, it also gives you some flat spell lightning damage, which is really nice. So an extra little buff there. But with all that in mind, let's go ahead and dive into the skills, the passives, the interactions, and just how it all works. For skills, I'm running Werebear Form, Swipe, Summon Storm Totems, Warcry, and Maelstrom. For Werebear Form, we do have +1 thanks to our Temple Staff that gives us +1 to melee skills, and for it, there's some nodes that are really important here. So 1 point in 𝐒𝐮𝐲 Heart, 1 point in Relentless Thunder, and then 1 point in Wisdom Claws gives us spell damage per strength. So you want to stack strength everywhere that you can get it and take every passive point where strength is available. You can get up to about 140 if you have tier 6, tier 7 gear. Here we don't have that much. We only have 100 on this build, a lot of it being tier 5 slots. But all that flat spell damage along with 2-handed staff is going to make that lightning start hitting really hard. Then we got 1 point in Invigoration so that we get rage gained on kill or on hit for rares and bosses. Also remember, in our passives, we'll get 3 rage every time that we do a critical strike, so that allows us to stay full rage the entire time. 2 points in Rip and Tear, 2 points in Dauntless, and 1 point in Intimidating Cry, so that we war after Rampage, and that war will use the Warcry's skill tree, which will give us the Maelstrom's invincibility and some crit chance, which will be really nice. 2 points in Apex Predator, so we have 100% increased damage while rampaging. 2 points in Army Sunder, 1 point in Insatiable for that base crit chance for Maul and Rampage, as well as global increased crit chance. This is a very important node. On our chest, we can get flat % crit chance for Rampage, which will help the lightning strikes as well, but if you don't have that, you can definitely put more points into this, and this can cap you out pretty quick. 1 point in Bringer of Storms to convert everything to lightning. 5 points in Crackling Assault, so while rampaging we have 5 lightning strikes per second going off, and 1 point in Unending Storm so that Rampage no longer has a cooldown. Reduce the speed of it, but gives you 20% more lightning damage. For Swipe, we have this set up for anything. I don't use it at all, so there's a lot of ways you can play it. I haven't optimized it for this build. If I did, I'd probably go into Twin Fangs so that we have that global critical strike multiplier per stack, but again, we're not even dual wielding. It's already converted to lightning in the werebear tree, so really you can just kind of do whatever you want with it. I'm not using Swipe at all in this build, but I'll just go over where I put the points. Stormclaw, we have the Guidance, 3 points in Wrath of the Wild, Storm Scour, Aspect of the Panther, Feline Hunter, Way of the Hunt, and of course Wingarian Reach. Again, you can do anything. You can use it just for the kill threshold if you want. You can pretty much do anything with it. Again, I'm just rampaging the entire time. Then for summon Stormcrows, we use this to buff ourselves. So we've got 3 points in Avis, 1 point in Nimbleness, and then 3 points in Aspect of the Crow. So there's a 30% chance every time that your Crow does a hit to give you Aspect of the Crow, which will give you 3 flat spell lightning damage for 8 seconds, and that can stack. So we want the Crow to do as many hits as possible. So we got 2 points in Shatterbolt, 1 point in Storm Breath, 5 points in Fulminating Caw, and 5 points in Thunderstruck, so that there's a 25% chance for your Crow on its Lightning Strike to attack 2 additional targets with it, and that will give it up to 3 hits, which will allow you to get more of the aspect of the Crow. You only have about 1 to 4 stacks of it in gameplay, so it doesn't do a huge amount, but it's just a passive skill that allows us to get a little extra damage. Then for Warcry, again, we have this set up for crit chance with the 2 points in Deep War and then 4 points in Battle Cry. We want the cooldown reduced, so we have 1 point in Staggering War, 1 point in Kinetic Scream, 2 in Eviscerating Howl, and then 1 in Shallow Breath for that negative 50% cooldown. 1 point in Juggernaut allows us to be invulnerable after 1 second with a 4-second cooldown. That means we're invincible 25% of the time. The other nice thing about this is it automatically procs when you're done rampaging. So if you're rampaging around and you notice that you're in an AoE or something that's about to go off, a one-shot mechanic that's going to hit you and there's going to be no getting out of it, you can stop rampaging, let Warcry go off, and then you'll be invincible for 1 second. So if you time it right, you can survive all those by being invincible. 3 points in Breath of Eterra, so that we're healed every time it goes off for 300. That's scaled with healing effectiveness. We have enough healing effectiveness to make this about 1,000 healing every time it goes off for us, doubled if we're at low life. 1 point in Purging Shout, so that we get cleansed of ailments when it goes off, and 4 points of Whirlpool, so when it goes off we also get 4 stacks of Maelstrom. And then for Maelstrom, we use it for haste, we use it for lightning strikes, and to put some chill on the enemy. So we got 1 point in Arctic Chill for that chill chance per second, 4 points in Whirlpool, 3 points in Sleep Footed, so we get some extra flat dodge rating, which is nice. 1 point in Power of the Storm, so that lightning will strike enemies once every second when we're at 6 or more stacks. 2 points in Strong Tides brings that down to only needing 4 stacks, and then 3 points in Energize allows it to attack additional targets, so you can actually hit 4 enemies every second with it. We have 4 points in Calm for that mana efficiency, in our case rage efficiency, and then we have 1 point in Windswept, so at 6 or more stacks you will gain haste. For passives, we got 30 points in the base Primalist class with 1 point in Natural Attunement, 8 points in Primal Strength for that strength that gives us flat spell damage, 5 points in Hunter's Restoration for all that health, 6 points in Wisdom of the Wild for more increased spell damage, 5 points in Elder Branch for flat spell damage, and 5 points in Berserker so that when we're at low life, we take 25% less damage. 13 points in the Beastmaster, 8 points in Your Strength to take 16% less damage from nearby enemies, as well as give us 8 strength for the flat spell damage, and 5 points in Boarheart, so when we take a hit from a melee attack, we get Aspect of the Boar, reducing damage for the next 5 seconds by 15%. And then in the Druid with 67 points, we have 7 points in Plating, 5 points in Primordial Resonance for that elemental penetration since we are lightning, 7 points in Druidic Prowess gives us 8 strength for 8 more flat spell damage, 5 points in Thicket of Thorns for all that armor, 5 points in Focused Wraith, 1 point in Rancor, 10 points in Aspects of Might for again 10 strength being 10 flat spell damage for us, 1 point in Woodland Beings, 1 point in Natural Duality, and 5 points in Eternal Nature for 5 more spell damage, 10 points in Hideskin for a ton of health and health gained as Threshold Endurance, which is really nice for our tankiness, and then most importantly 10 points in Rage Burn for that 150% crit chance, and you gain Rage on crit, 3 Rage every one of them. That's why you want to get to 100% crit, so you're constantly getting a good supply of Rage coming in, so you'll be at full at all times. And then for the character sheet, you can see here we have about 100 strength on our character. You can get up to 140, as I said earlier, with tier 6, tier 7 strength, which we don't have on this build. And then we're still working on our resistances, but you're super tanky. We're already doing 400 corruption, but again, we're gonna have to swap some gear around, get the right bases and stuff, and have all the right affixes on it, maybe sacrifice a little damage later, but we were really showcasing just how much damage you can really get off of this because it's really powerful. You have a ton of armor, so that kind of makes up a little bit for missing some of the resistances. You'll have a ton of flat dodge once all the Maelstroms are up, so you'll be sitting at about 20% dodge while you're actually in the end game. Our endurance is capped, critical strike avoidance, still need to farm that blessing and get to that. And then for damage types, we have 460% critical strike multiplier and 400% increased lightning damage, and that's where a lot of our damage comes from. Again, while rampaging, you'll get a bit more damage out of it. And then for the inventory, you can see here for the inventory, you can see here for the weapon, you want to go with the Temple Staff, get that +1 to melee attacks, get a tier 6, tier 7 critical strike multiplier, and then either get lightning damage or spell critical strike chance, but try and seal the opposite one, whichever one you don't get. You don't need a whole lot of spell critical strike chance, you get a lot elsewhere, but it does help to have some on the weapon. And then the important stat is that the base critical strike chance with rampage, and that does apply to the lightning strikes as well, which is really nice. Now if you don't get it there, again, inside the Werebear tree, move some points around, take it out of the damage while you're using rampage and put it into the crit chance, and you can get 4 to 6% more base there, along with another 100 to 150% increase, which will do more than what this tier 5 affixes, but this affix really solves the problem for getting to 100% crit. And then you can do a Stormcarved Testament. This gives you more added spell lightning damage as well as lightning penetration, so it's kind of nice. You don't have to have it, but it will boost your damage a bit. And then again, you want some increased cooldown recovery, you can get that on the belt and the boots. I don't have it on the belt, but I do have it on the boots. Again, you can get Warcry under 4 seconds if you have it on the belt and the boots, and if you take cooldown recovery while transformed. I believe it either rolls on the chest or the chest and helm, but that can also help bring it down even more, but those aren't needed. And then for idols, get as much health as you can. You can also get spell damage while transformed. You can also get critical strike avoidance, which I might throw some of those idols on just to have it until I farm the blessing. And then for how to play the build, it's really simple. This is a one button build. You literally are just going to rampage. That is all you're going to do. So as your crow goes around getting hits, you'll see that we're getting stacks of aspect of the crow. Here we're getting between 4 and 6 stacks, which is giving us between 12 and 24 flat spell damage, which is really nice. Again, it's totally random, so sometimes you'll get it, sometimes you won't. As its attacks chain, it'll actually, if we go over here and cause it to attack here, so it's actually having its things chain to get some extra hits, you have a chance to get even more stacks, but it's not going to make a huge difference. Again, each one of those attacks is only a 25% chance to chain, but we did hit 8 stacks there, 9 stacks for a second, which is going to give you 27 to 30 flat spell damage, but not a big thing. That's just why we have the crow. But the main point of the build is just a rampage. All you're going to do is rampage. Every time you stop rampaging, you're going to get those Maelstrom stacks. As you can see here, we're doing our 100k crits with lightning, which is absolutely nutty. But all you got to do is just keep rampaging around. Whenever you need to change directions, it has no cooldown, so you can just change it. And that's it. Remember that every time you stop rampaging, as long as war is off cooldown, it's automatically going to do it, and that'll give you the Maelstrom stacks. And that's really it. That's how the entire build works. One page, just rampage all the way through the map, as you can see in the gameplay, and watch everything die. Super fun to play. I love it visually, it feels really good, and it's great for speed running through maps. But that's going to be it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to try it, or if you have tried it and you liked it. And as always, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.